Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Energy Quick Chat where we rub minds with stakeholders and players in the energy market. Now, Sustainable Energy for All recently hosted a high-level delegation from the Rockefeller Foundation and Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. The delegation engaged with key stakeholders to address how to accelerate Nigeria's energy transition to clean and affordable energy while closing the energy access gaps. We will now hear from Dr. Wale Aboyade, Interim Regional Head for Africa at Global Energy Alliance and for People and Planet, to discuss the meeting outcomes and Nigeria's exciting journey towards a clean energy future and across Africa. Now, thanks for joining us here on Energy Frontiers, Mr. Wale. Let's start by discussing the outcomes of your meetings and visits to the project sites here in Nigeria. What key takeaways did you gain from these interactions?
Many people may not know it, but Nigeria is probably the most exciting market for decentralized renewable energy in the world today. A lot of it being driven by private sector participants, many of them Nigerians like you and I, who invest their time, their sweat, their energy in activities that help to extend clean energy to people in rural areas and underserved areas who do not have access to energy. So we were able to see, and Dr. Radsha was able to see for the first time exactly what that looks like, especially at the sites, interconnected mini-grid site we went to go and see just in Nasarawa State. It was a 350 kilowatt site that's currently powering 1,600 homes and businesses, and they expect to expand it to another 2,000 or so homes and businesses over the next months and years. That site really showed the impact that, collaboration and an alliance could do, because again, it was the private sector coming together with donors and funders like ourselves, of course, with the grant from the Rockefeller Foundation, but also through partners like SC for All and the World Bank, all came together to support those sort of initiatives. So it shows you what partnerships can do. It also shows the impact of this on livelihoods of people, of, the average Nigerian. Many of them in that community were receiving power, constant power, for the first time in over 10 years. And you could tell that this was something that they're really excited about. They're able to run their businesses. They're able to read at night. They're able to move around in safety because of street lights that work. All of these things they're able to do because of power that has been made available through a collaboration between the private sector and the public sector to deliver services to the people of Nigeria. So that was really interesting to see. My second takeaway was the excitement to do more. The government recognizes that this is a path. They need to work with the private sector. We cannot gone are the days where we can depend on government to provide electricity for everyone. And they've seen that it can work. They've tested it through those kind of sites that we visited, that this can work. A private sector can be a partner along with other development partners. So they're eager to roll it out. They're eager to scale. And this is also the second part of the visit, where we were having discussions with different government stakeholders on how do we get to the next stage? How do we get this to reach the remaining 80 million Nigerians who still do not have access to reliable power today? And I'm excited to say that we received the support and the backing of all government stakeholders that we met with, but also the private sector stakeholders, including the finance and those in the finance sector who we hope will be coming to invest in this thing. That it was a really exciting visit, and it bodes well for the future.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Now, you spoke well about what you're doing in terms of partnerships, and then how you are closing that gap in terms of bridging the gap for energy access. And we already know that that's one key issue that is that we are facing in Nigeria at the moment when we come to electricity. Now, tell me more about what your organization and other partners are doing to accelerate this progress towards achieving universal energy access, where we have this project supporting mini grid projects and all of that across Nigeria, not just in faraway places, but places like Lagos and, other sites, other places in Lagos.
Thank you, Justina. That's a really good question. So the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet was set up by mostly philanthropic organizations led by the Rockefeller Foundation, but we also had as incubation partners the Earth Fund as well as the IKEA Foundation. All came together to say, let us try and pool philanthropic capital from these different organizations to help accelerate the journey towards universal energy access. But we recognized that there were other existing partners that have been trying to do the same for a while. Most notably is the government itself, who has been trying to carry this load on their own for a long time. But you also have development finance partners like the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, and many other international financial institutions. They have been also active in this space, but each of these institutions have particular mandates and boundaries through which they work that sometimes constrains them. And the reason why our founders thought that it made sense to create an organization like us is that we can be flexible enough to help fill some of this gap in between many of these partners who have been, doing their best, but it simply wasn't enough. An example of what we were set up to do, for example, is to be able to provide what we call catalytic capital to kickstart projects that traditional commercial and development institutions may not be able to invest in because of their risk appetite. These organizations were set up with a certain level of risk. As you can understand, they have depositors' money with them. They cannot just put that money down into something that might be risky, because that means that they cannot get it back. And if they cannot get it back, the people who put their money there will not get it back. And that's you and me. So they're understandably risky because they understand, because mini grid sector in particular is so relatively new. And that's why we were able to come in with catalytic finance to seed some of these pilot projects and invest in them early to be able to show that they can work, they're commercially viable. And once we are able to prove that, we can then crowd in the more risky capital that is out there. So that's one of the most important things that we were set up for, is to be able to provide catalytic finance for the more risky early stage projects. The other thing we're set up to do was also to provide flexible and quick support to government as well as to the private sector to build their capacity, to be able to understand some of these new technologies around mini grids, to be able to understand the business models that make them scale, but to also be able to understand the kind of regulatory environment you require to make the private sector be able to invest in it at scale. So we've been doing that a lot as well, especially in Nigeria, to great success. We were working, for instance, with SE for All, our long-term partners that you mentioned earlier on, Sustainable Energy for All, to capacitate the government through the Energy Transition Office, which is a team of brilliant young Nigerians who've been helping the government think through what are the right kind of plans, policies to actually really leverage private sector capital to bridge the financing gap. So those are examples, I think, of what we were set up for and how we work.
Right. Now, what investments and collaborative efforts are needed to ensure the long-term sustainability of your projects in Nigeria? Because as we already know, these things are already on ground, but we need something that would stand as a buffer for long-term sustainability so that these things do not just go as they come, but that we can have them long-term.
That is a very good question. There are two things we do on that score, and two ways you can think of sustainability. One is sustainability to be able to attract more money to scale, so that instead of, over 400 projects or so that we have in the pipeline right now, Nigeria needs maybe about 10,000 mini grids according to some estimates. You need to for you to get sustainability, you need to fill that gap. And we estimate that Nigeria needs probably somewhere to between 11 to $20 billion to connect the whole country. So sustainability requires government to come in and to create the enabling environment that can continue to attract the capital to meet that need. But the other aspect of sustainability, I think that you probably were addressing more, is that even for each mini grid project, how are we sure that it will last? How are we sure that the community will continue to benefit over a long time? And that is where we really believe in the need to empower communities with economic activity that can stimulate their affordability and their earning power, so that they can continue to have, the earning power to buy power. Because as long as they're buying the power, these mini grids will be viable. Because the way the systems are built is they last many decades. But usually with the financial model around it, if you're not able to get enough money back to continue to maintain the system and pay the salaries of the people working on the power plants, you will not have that sustainability, as we've seen in many cases in Nigeria, where, as people say, we lack a maintenance culture. So to be able to generate enough revenues to keep it going, it means that the average Nigerian who's using it needs to have, their earning power needs to increase. And one of the ways we are contributing to that is supporting what we call productive uses of energy. We work with farmers, for instance, to help subsidize and provide agricultural processing equipment, cold storage to be able to store things so that they don't go bad, mills to be able to mill palm oil, for example, mill rice. And by providing all of these things at a subsidized rate connected to the energy, these farmers or these business people are able to generate more income and they can afford to pay more power. But also they demand more from the grid, which then makes the grid itself work more, because you actually need these power plants to continue to run, to be efficient. So they're able to run more and they're more efficient, and therefore the whole system is more sustainable. And what that does is that also then build the livelihoods of the whole community. So we really believe in this demand stimulation and livelihood support through productive use appliances. And this is a key part of our initiative right now in Nigeria that was also a key part of our visit, which is the World Bank and African Development Bank's initiative called Mission 300 or Mission 300 Million, were both announced a couple of months ago that they were going to try and have a target of electrifying 300 million Africans by 2030. The majority of those Africans are Nigerians, who come from Nigeria, because Nigeria's deficit is around 80 million, which is a significant chunk of 300 million, almost 30%. And so to be able to reach that number, sustainability is key. It's not enough to be able to attract the finance. You need to actually make this mini grids work, which is why that program has as one of its key anchors this productive use of energy work that I was talking about, supporting the livelihoods of people to be able to produce things and demand more energy so that their local economy can grow, and by extension, Nigeria's economy can grow.
Right. You already touched on a bit of this, but I just wanted you to just give me, just in a few minutes, what are the other programs, GEAPP supported programs that you are embarking on, and what impact are they making across Africa?
Right. So all of our programs across Africa are entirely focused on energy access, clean energy access, but they come in different shapes and sizes. And forms. So in Nigeria, for instance, it is largely led by supporting the distributed renewable energy sector, especially mini grids, interconnected and isolated mini grids. And then we, like I said, provide catalytic finance. We provide technical assistance to government and private sector to make those catalytic finance more effective. In other markets, for example, in places like Malawi, we've invested in battery energy storage because there they had a problem where they had a high penetration of renewable energy, solar, into their grid, which was causing a little bit of instability. And so we are investing in a 20 megawatt and 30 megawatt hour battery energy storage system that is connected to the grid that can help smooth the effects of the solar that is connected to the grid. In places like South Africa, where we're also active, we've been supporting the government in rolling out their own energy transition plan. So South Africa has a unique problem where the vast majority of their generation comes from coal. And they're looking to transition into cleaner sources. But we understand the need for that transition to be a just one. And so we've been supporting the government in designing a just transition that will leave nobody behind, that will be able to create new forms of renewable energy, but in a way that the jobs from the coal industry are not lost. And in fact, it can also grow the economy there. So these are some examples of the ways in which we work in different countries. To date, over the 2.5 years that we've been set up, we've committed over 260 million to 8 different African countries, Nigeria being sort of like our biggest partner. And we hope to continue to do that in the near future.
Right, that's $260 million.
Over $260 million in over 2 years.
Oh, over.
Yes.
Right. And one thing I took out from what you said is how you are able to deal with each country based on their need and not just a generalized approach, but on a need basis, country by country. Thank you so much, Dr. Wale Aboyade, Interim Regional Head for Africa at Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us, and other partners continue to follow the progress and the impact of these important projects. Thank you so much. Right. And that's it on our Energy Quick Chat. Thank you everyone for taking time to watch. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe to see more videos like this, and follow Frontier Africa Reports across all our social media handles. I am Justina Okechukwu. Bye for now.